Welcome to Travel with Danny and MJ. I'm Mary Jane.
And I'm Danny. We're traveling the world with just carry-ons and a backpack each.
Follow along on our adventures ahead.
In this video, we visit a lot of the most important Catholic sites in Rome and Vatican City. We before our start of our trip in Rome, we bought these passes that got us to many different locations, including the ones you're going to see, but also the other ones that we saw in other videos, like the Colosseum and the Forum. But got us into St. Peter's, into the Vatican Museum, got us to skip the line. For St. Peter's, we took a guided tour.
Right, so it was starting, I think it's 7 a.m., so we had, or something close to that, so we had a meeting point before that. So we, our trusty guide got us to St. Peter's Square extra early. It was empty. We saw the sunrise, and then we met up with the tour. So that was amazing because the crowds came later.
So let's take a look at St. Peter's.
St. Peter's Square in front of the Basilica. So many people here on a Sunday.
This is one of the most famous and iconic squares in the whole world. It's located in Vatican City. We're right in front of St. Peter's Basilica. It's a masterpiece of Baroque architecture designed by Gian Lorenzo Bernini in the 17th century. The square is surrounded by two semicircular colonnades consisting of 284 Doric columns and 88 pilasters, creating an embracing effect. The obelisk is 84 feet high, that's 25.5 meters, brought to Rome by Emperor Caligula. And the fountains, there's two large fountains. One is by Carlo Maderno in 1613, and the other is by Bernini in 1675. There are 140 statues of saints, all atop the colonnades.
Strolling through the colonnades at St. Peter's Square. We're about to enter the dome of St. Peter's. So we're inside the dome of St. Peter's. That was a tough climb. This is the view from the top of the dome in St. Peter's. These are the Vatican Gardens, English and French and Italian gardens. Down there, this is the view down to this St. Peter's Square from the dome. Mark and I climbed all the way up there. Not an easy climb. I don't know exactly how many steps. At one point, so many steps in, it said another 165 steps to go. So not an easy trip, but beautiful. Really stunning views from up top. We're inside on the floor of the cathedral now, the Basilica. This mosaic is from the 1300s. It was originally in the church that was here before the Basilica was built. That's Pope Gregory, who gave us the Gregorian calendar. carved closer to the walkway that the popes would use to go between Castel Sant'Angelo over there and St. Peter's over there. The rooftop terrace overlooking St. Peter's, and it's almost sunset, although I don't think we're going to have a great sunset.
I think it's going to be great, but
No.
it's okay. We're on a rooftop in Rome, drinking wine.
Having a little vino. St. Peter's Square, the Vatican, twilight, and all of colonnades and the cathedral, or the Basilica, I guess, are illuminated. Pretty impressive. Fountain lit up all the way around.
While we were in Italy, the Pope passed away. So Mary Jane and I went back to St. Peter's Square to see what the scene was like for that, where he was lying in state, and how many people were there, and the press. And so take a look at what we did there.
So it's 6:43 a.m. It is Thursday, April 24th.
Okay.
And we are heading towards St. Peter's Square. The Pope is lying in the Basilica, but I don't think we're going to get to go in there. We just want to see what is happening in the square and pay our final respects.
Francis died on Monday, and it's Thursday morning early. See what the crowd is like. All Pope passed 3 days ago now. That's the press corps, and there's all kinds of people doing video shots, news people, I guess. I haven't seen a big line yet, but we're going to walk over and look. But I'm sure there's going to be a big line. He's lying in state is the line to view the Pope. I'm not even sure how far it goes back.
We're in front of St. Jude's Basilica, and the Pope is there, laid in state. It's our last full day here in Rome, so we're not going to wait online to go in. We wanted to come to St. Peter's Square and to see what's happening. When we got here about a half hour ago, we then followed the line of people who were going to enter the Basilica, and it is blocks long. But right here, right now, it's very calm and quietish, a lot of press and police presence and security. So it's kind of strange knowing that the Pope is laying in there. But I feel happy that we're here, that we could just come here and take one last look. So part of the ticket included going to the Vatican Museums, which the end is the Sistine Chapel. So you fantastic artwork, and we did all that, and then you'll see what happened.
We're in the Museum of the Vatican, Musei Vaticano. The first section we're in is like ancient Egyptian artifacts. The gardens within the museum.
Jeez, don't break the Vatican.
I'm breaking the Vatican. Now we're getting into the Greek times in Egypt. It's when Ptolemy, who was a general from Alexander the Great, and after Alexander the Great died, he took over Egypt and created a dynasty, ruling Egypt for hundreds of years, I think. This part of the Vatican Museums is called the Courtyard of Statues, and as Her Ladyship says, it certainly is one, a courtyard of statues. It's called the Sala degli Animali, so it's the animal section with all animal statues. Some people that, there has to be an animal in the work, in the statue. horses and lions and birds. The leopard spots, actual spots. Next room, there's this amazingly impressive ceiling painting called the Sala della Muse. Really, wow. The Sala Rotonda, the round room. It has a beautiful domed ceiling here, kind of like the Pantheon, but I think that's mostly painted on the ceiling up there. I'm not sure. We're just moving like lemmings through this place, but it is pretty incredible. Paintings on the ceilings, there's a lot of light, so I don't know if it's coming through there. There it is. Now we're in a room or a hall full of amazing tapestries. It's darker in here because they are very vulnerable to light. This tapestry is massive. It's the resurrection of Christ. It's Roman soldiers are afraid as he emerges. It's the Hall of Italian, a geographic map. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I am something of a map geek. Love maps. This place is pretty cool to me. I didn't notice earlier, but at the top of each of the map paintings is where it's from, this Piedmont area, Liguria. This is the whole peninsula of Italy. Italy Antiqua and Italy Nova. Sala dell'Immacolata. It has massive paintings on the wall. The ceiling must be 60 feet high. I don't even know. I can't get the perspective. The ceiling, like a lot of these ceilings, is something else. I walked into this room and just said, whoa, because it is amazing. The walls, the ceiling, everything. Is the room of Constantine. Constantine was the emperor, the Roman Empire, that converted Rome to Christianity, to Catholicism. And it's all about celebrating him and how he offered Rome to the Pope, which is how Vatican City became its own independent country. Pretty impressive room. Michelangelo Raphael, his school anyway. And this is the coronation of Charlemagne and the establishment of the Holy Roman Empire in the year 1800. Another amazing hall, a giant globe. Maps. Map of the world. Around the gardens now of the Vatican Museums. They closed the Sistine Chapel before we got to see it. They said they were closing it early, so they moved up our time to come in, but they didn't tell us they were going to close it while we were in there. So we're a bit disappointed, but I mean, it's amazing what we saw. They could have been more informative in saying you have to get to this chapels by a certain moment in order to see it. So it was a great visit, but it kind of ended with a bit of disappointment.
You'll see in the video, we weren't able to get to the Sistine Chapel because they closed it. But Mark and I were able to recover everything by almost exactly reenacting one of the famous pieces of art in there.
Pretty much exactly.
Yeah, take a look.
Castel Sant'Angelo is not one of the, monuments or sites in Rome that you hear people say, it's not to me as well known. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
We had never been.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. The views from, you just keep going up and up.
And you'll
Fantastic.
see it. There's a terrace at the top. You'll see.
This is the Castel Sant'Angelo. It's one thing after another in this city of Rome. We've entered the Castel Sant'Angelo, constructed by Emperor Hadrian to be his mausoleum and mausoleum for others. Throughout the years, it has had other functions, fortress, for a long time to be where the popes lived. This is one of the 4 defensive bastions on the castle. We're walking our way around. It's kind of circular part of the castle, inside of the square area that was the mausoleum for Hadrian. This was originally constructed in the 1st century AD, and as I mentioned earlier, has had many different functions. A view from ramparts of one of the corners of the lower section of Castel Sant'Angelo, the Mausoleum part. View of the Ponte Sant'Angelo right from the ramparts, the Mausoleum section of Castel Sant'Angelo. Part of the central tower is the actual Hadrian's Mausoleum, where Hadrian and other emperors were buried or interred after their death, up until an emperor in 200 AD or so. There are skylights basically in the place. On the opposite wall is a plaque with verses that supposedly Hadrian wrote as part of his funeral arrangements. This room and other rooms here are what's called the papal apartments. Popes lived here for centuries. It's known as the Hall of Clement VI. As I mentioned, popes lived here. Sometimes they took refuge. There was a sack of Rome by German soldiers as part of the Holy Roman Empire under Charles VI. And Clement had to go into the Castel Sant'Angelo for safety. On the ceiling, you can see center is his name. This is what they believed that the castle looked like originally, when it was just a mausoleum for Hadrian. I mentioned earlier that there's a pathway between this castle, Sant'Angelo, and the Vatican, and that's down here is that pathway. It's got walls on both sides of it, and you can walk apparently all the way from this castle above the street, basically unseen, all the way back to the Vatican. It's been used, as a service corridor mostly, but 2 times in history it was used for the safety of the Pope when Rome was being attacked in different manners. Here's another view of the walkway that the popes could take to get from here all the way over to St. Peter's. We've reached the very top of Castel Sant'Angelo. Beautiful view of St. Peter's and the Vatican over there. The river, Tiber. Domes here in Rome. And off in the further distance there is the monument to King Vittore Emanuele. Just more and more of monumental Rome. This terrace, they call it the Terrace of the Angel, is used for celebrations. It's where they will light fireworks displays from for different events in the year. And it is called the Terrace of the Angel because of this very large statue of Saint Michael. The story is that Saint Michael came to a pope, and I think in the 1500s, and sheathed his sword, which indicated that the plague that was ravaging Rome at that time was over. The other thing up here, it's hard to see, but this little crack in the wall there is a large bell, and that bell was used to indicate when there would be an execution of someone convicted of a capital crime. And all the bells are ringing. I don't know if you can hear it over the wind, but it's kind of pretty cool. So many church bells ringing at the same time. I wasn't sure what that building was before with the chariot statue on top. It is the Supreme Court. Well, this is one of those rooms in Rome where you walk in and you say, wow, it's like non-stop art, floor to ceiling and on the ceiling. So the room was created under Pope Paul III, who was the Pope during the Reformation, and one of the things the church did to counter the Reformation was to go big and to say, if the church has this kind of magnificence, it must be blessed in some way. So this is where they did entertainment, and so it had to be lavish. So as you're leaving the Castel Sant'Angelo, it's a circular ramp going all the way down, I guess, around the central tower. We're more than halfway down. Back at the Castel Sant'Angelo at night. It's illuminated. Rome is magnificent. And then we have the Castel Sant'Angelo Bridge as well. Which of the statues are illuminated as well. The river. And then it's the Vittore Emanuele II Bridge.
Finally, the ladies decided to have a stay-in, and Mark and I went to see the catacombs. So there's not much footage from the catacombs because you're not allowed to take video, and it's not really pictures inside of there because people died there or were buried there, so they don't want that. But it was really interesting how it worked, how they organized it, and it's really a well-run operation that we went to visit. So here's a little bit of that.
Mark and I are on our own trip today to visit the catacombs. And we're going to the catacombs of San Callisto. See a bunch of dead guys, I guess. Pretty here. So how the catacomb at San Callisto works anyway is that there's no unescorted tours. So you go here and it's relatively inexpensive, 10 euros, and you wait and you go on the guided tour in your preferred language. They have it in many languages. We are preferring English today. A little gift shop. Very easy process. The grounds are beautifully manicured. We're visiting the Catacomb di San Callisto. Started the tour. We're not allowed to take videos in the catacombs, but before we get in, a big group of English speakers.
So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at these famous sites. We had a ball seeing them ourselves, and we enjoy sharing all of this with you. So we'll see you next time on Travel with Danny and MJ.
Thanks for traveling with Danny and MJ.
We look forward to seeing you on our next adventure.